All right, Dan, we have known each other for a good while, and I think the moment that I knew you were different than just about anybody I'd ever met when it came to eating was when we were living in New York, and you went on like a 45-minute discourse about the sausages that you were going to bring to a tailgating party. And was it how long you were going to leave them in the bag? There was some bizarre step that was like vital to this whole thing.
Yeah, as I recall, I was parboiling the sausages in beer beforehand, and then I was going to grill them in the parking lot to finish them. Right? I mean, that's pretty obvious, Luke.
Yeah.
And right, I mean, you want to boil them for a certain amount of time, but not too long. And because I was going to leave them in the same water in which they were boiled, they would theoretically continue to cook, but you don't want them to be overcooked and dry out. It's a big issue.
And you would like every day have these conversations with other people who were getting lunch from like where the lunch was going to come from. You had a theory on everything. Has this always been your life? Like when you were a little kid, were you doing science experiments on the cereal to maximize the crunchiness?
Crunch, yeah. I mean, I've always been pretty obsessive about the details of all different kinds of things, and eating especially. I've always loved to eat. And so, I mean, that's what a lot of my book and about the work is about, is just sort of like the minutia of eating. And it's not so much about restaurants or recipes or high-end anything or cooking even. It's just more about like looking at the most mundane eating questions in ridiculous detail and trying to uncover new information about them, like, you know, how long that sausage should sit in that water.
Well, let me ask you about satvor.
Yes. How much time you got?
All night. Not really.
Yeah.
What is, you're obsessed in your book with and on your podcast with satvor.
Yeah, satvor, short for surface area to volume ratio. I'm sure that many of you guys remember biology class. Surface area to volume ratio, it's a crucial concept in nature, Luke, and a crucial concept in eating. And it is the ratio between the surface area of any food or object or anything, the area exposed to the air, and the total volume of it. And this ratio governs so much of our eating experiences. And by just understanding how it applies to the eating experience, you can make so much of what you eat more delicious.
Give me an example of satvor strategy in action.
All right, well, I mean, first of all, there's a real quick one. Fried chicken. If you're looking at two pieces of fried chicken, you want to pick the piece that has a high satvor, more surface area. You want one that has a coastline, you know, like the coast of Maine, with crags and crevices and inlets. You don't want just a flat, because there's going to be more crunch. It's more exterior that has been exposed to the boiling oils of the fryer-later. Same thing with ice cubes. Satvor, huge in ice cubes.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time thinking about ice cubes.
You don't?
Almost no time in my life is spent. Here's when I think about ice cubes. I open the freezer and I realize somebody put this back in with no water in it. And that somebody was me.
Yeah.
Tell me about, because you have a lot of theories on ice.
Well, the surface area to volume ratio of ice cubes governs how quickly they'll melt.
Okay.
And so if you have a lot of surface area in relation to volume, like you guys know those ice cubes that have the cylinder poked through the middle of them? Those melt very quickly because they have that extra surface area through the middle. Most of the time, you don't want your ice to melt that quickly. In fact, there's a movement in some of the sort of trendier hipster bars around the country you guys may see where they just give you a drink that's got one huge ice cube. Or it's like a Rubik's Cube of ice. Now, technically speaking, the highest satvor of any ice would be the sphere. Say that again. Technically speaking, the lowest satvor is the sphere. So that will be the slowest melting. But I find that when you tilt the glass back and
it's like a frozen tennis ball hits you in the teeth.
That's right. And it hits your nose, too.
Yeah.
So I think that the single giant cube is the best combination of satvor and face compatibility.
I mean, when you say it like that, it just makes sense. Let's go through some of the commonly consumed things that you feel like people are maybe not doing right, or at least you are offering superior options in your book. Let's talk cheese on cheeseburgers.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you paused like you were a 20-year-old guy about to tell his parents he was gay. That was a pause like, this is gonna, everybody's sitting down, this is serious.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. You're putting the cheese on the wrong part of the cheeseburger.
That's right. So I talk a lot in my book about what I call the proximity effect, which is the idea that when you put any bite of food into your mouth, whatever part of that bite is in closest proximity to your tongue will be accentuated, okay? So for instance, when you fork the bites of a salad, you want to fork in ascending order of priority. So whatever component of the salad you want to taste the most, you guys don't already do this? So,
Dan was, by the way, a surprisingly effective radio producer, considering most of his time was spent prioritizing his forking.
yeah. So you want to fork in ascending order of priority so that the part you want to taste the most ends up on the tip of the fork and goes onto your tongue directly. In the case of the cheeseburger, I find that if you have a nice, thick, juicy cheeseburger, the cheese on the top in the traditional way, the cheese gets lost. Put the cheese on the bottom of your cheeseburger. It moves the cheese closer to your tongue, and that accentuates cheesy goodness.
You learned something right here on Livewire. Speaking of which, by the way, this is Livewire Radio. We're talking to Dan Pashman. He's the guy behind the Sporkful podcast. He's got a new book out, too, called Eat More Better. And this is actually perfect timing. How about I hold the guacamole, Dan, and you can explain the way that people should be dipping tortilla chips more effectively, because this has been, I think, up there with Ebola in terms of national crises.
Yeah.
Most of the people listening would agree.
Well, let me tell you, this tortilla chip demonstration is going to certainly affect more people.
Yeah. Ooh. That's some news commentary
You like that?
coming from Dan Pashman. Oh, really? Yeah, that one gets...
I got a rim shot, Luke.
That
didn't.
one gets the rim shot. Great.
Why don't I hold the guacamole,
Okay.
Luke, and why don't I put you on the spot here? Why don't you pick a triangular tortilla chip, and let's go ahead and critique Luke's technique.
Okay, I'm going to pick just a regular tortilla chip.
Okay, now, right away, Luke's already... Now, one of the things I talk about in my book... one of the things I talk a lot about is, like, there's some issues of objective truth that I will say, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. There's other times where I will say, it depends on your taste. Do it how you like, but understand the factors at play so you can make an informed decision. Okay? This is one of those cases.
So-
when you have a triangular tortilla chip,
Okay.
there's two basic ways to grab the chip.
So I've already failed at this. I grabbed the chip wrong?
No, you're okay. Well, you're...
I am holding, let me explain for the
you're on
radio
thin ice.
audience.
Yeah, go ahead and explain.
For the radio audience, I'm holding the tortilla chip, I think, the way anybody would. I'm sort of holding a corner.
You're holding by 1 point and dipping 2 points.
Yeah.
Right.
That was my plan.
That's fine. That's not wrong, but the other option is you could hold by a straight edge and dip 1 point.
Okay, I'm turning it
Okay.
around.
Again, this is not a matter of right or wrong in this particular case, Luke, but you got to know the factors at play. Because when you hold 1 point and dip 2 points, you have a wider area with which to accumulate dip, but a higher chance for breakage.
Okay. Can I...
Give it a shot.
Can I have some guacamole now? I'm really hungry, actually, all right?
Yeah.
I dipped. How was the dip? I dipped it in there. It didn't break. I'm holding it by one edge.
That was nice. It was nice the way you dragged across the top instead of plunging deep in.
Okay.
Because when you plunge deep into a thick dip and then you got to fork back out, you're putting more strain on the chip.
Okay. You had an engineer on the Sporkful, right, to talk about this exact kind of pressure situation.
I interviewed a structural engineer, yes, on this very topic. And I talked to him about the scoop chip, actually.
Okay.
You know, the scoop chip, which is it's a nice innovation, although I find that when you eat it, you know, right side up, the vertical walls of the chip tend to cut the roof of your mouth, which is a condition I've identified as Captain Crunch's complaint.
Yeah, these are the chips that are popular now that are kind of like a little mini bowl or something.
Right. And so so they're okay, but this engineer was saying that one of the strongest shapes in engineering is a dome. And I was thinking about the scoop, and he's saying the dome, scoop, dome. And suddenly it hit me. What is a scoop, Luke? But an upside-down dome. So what you do is you take a scoop chip, and you put it on your fingertip like a thimble. And you can run this thing through cream cheese. And it will not break. It will not break.
Okay. I have to ask you, Dan.
Please.
Is it exhausting to go through life this way? And the reason I ask is because for most of us, if you get a bad bagel, your day pretty much goes on, but that could be life-shattering for you.
It's a burden. It's a burden. But it's also a lifestyle that brings with it tremendous riches, I think. As I say in the book, I really sort of try to get people fired up about the pursuit of what I call perfect deliciousness, which is a platonic ideal, that we all need to be striving for as eaters. And, you may not get there, but, the journey is the reward. And sometimes it can be a lonely path. But it's the path I've chosen, and I find that it's very rewarding, and I invite you to come with me, Luke.
All right, I want to do that, but we've got to take a really quick break. You're listening to Livewire from PRI International. We will be right back. All right, welcome back to Livewire from PRI Public Radio International. We're talking to Dan Pashman from the Sporkful podcast. His new book is Eat More Better, How to Make Every Bite More Delicious. And one of the things that you cover in your book, Dan, is the ethics of cherry picking from a bowl of snack mix.
Oh, yeah. There's actually a Socratic dialogue on that subject.
And in brief, how does it end?
Socrates wins.
Refresh me on how Socratic dialogue works.
Well, Socrates is arguing, there's Nietzsche and Aristotle comes in. I mean, basically, Socrates frames the question. He says that, well, let me explain it a different way. Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau come in and they say that it's a social, when you eat from a snack mix, there's a social contract, that you are agreeing to not cherry-pick ingredients in order to be able to partake in the bounty of the mix. Aristotle says it's up to chance. Kant says that equal access to all components is a categorical imperative. But Nietzsche says that such concerns are for the weak, and it's the true manifestation of the will to power to be able to take whatever components of the snack mix you wish. And in the end, Socrates wins by basically presenting his theory of snack mix forms, which is that when you eat from a snack mix, it's not a discrete moment in time, but rather you are partaking from the great snack mix in the sky, which is like a great trough running throughout time. And so
this is starting to feel like True Detective. All right, hold on.
Was that longer than you wanted?
No, it was just right. Okay. Yeah. I wanted to ask you some other sort of food ethics questions. So we prepared this little food ethics quiz for you, Dan Pashman. Are you ready to help us? You think about this stuff a lot. Okay. Your friend is in the restroom when their burger and fries arrive. You ordered a salad, and therefore you steal 5 or 6 fries from their plate before they return. Are you required to disclose that you took the fries, even though they will never know?
I don't think you're required. I mean, most burgers come with a pretty hefty portion of fries. Mm-hmm. I also
too many fries, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're doing your friend a favor.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're required. It would probably be nice, but I really have to question your underlying assumptions here, Luke. Why did you order a salad if you really wanted fries?
It was a moment of weakness. All right, question number 2. Your sister-in-law is a strict vegetarian and can't stop raving about your potato salad. You cook the potatoes in chicken broth. Do you tell her? Follow-up question, should you enjoy telling her? That's just a little extra for me.
Yeah. I deal with this a bit actually in my own life because there are members of my family who keep kosher. And I think that if it's based on some sort of if the person has a note from a doctor and you've seen it and you've called back the doctor's office to verify it and you're sure there's a diagnosed medical condition, then that's fine. But I think most of the time what people don't know won't hurt them.
I dated somebody, and for 4 years I thought that she had a deathly allergy to onions. They couldn't even have touched the knife that also prepared the other food. And then one day she just said, "Oh, I just don't like how it tastes." And the relationship ended shortly thereafter.
But by saying she was allergic, she got you to keep onions out of the food.
And every restaurant from here to Kalamazoo. So, last question, Dan Pashman, from the Food Ethics Department. Your boss has a massive peanut allergy. Is it okay to sneak a little peanut butter into his morning smoothie to send him a message that he should keep his mouth shut about your embezzling from the company.
Like a warning shot. This is like
Yeah.
a peanut butter warning shot
Yeah.
across the bow. I'd probably say no. I don't think you should try to risk your boss's life necessarily. But if you're the kind of person that's already embezzling from the company, I mean, why stop there?
Yeah. Dan Pashman, ladies and gentlemen.